Hi guys, so finally wanted to talk about my build. It's been a few months in the making and I'm finally done. I think I've got everything I needed in here now, which I'm super pleased about. I just wanted to talk about the build real quick. Let me tell you a little bit about the specs first. So what we have here is a 12900K with a 1080 Ti, an Asus Strix RTX gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. I've got 10 gig LAN in here, 2 terabytes NVMe, EK water block for the CPU, and an EK water block for the GPU. I've also got an FLT 120 reservoir combo with the D5 pump, and an SFX 850 Corsair power supply. A few other things that are in here are an Aqua Computer Octo to manage the fans, the sensors, the flow meter, and the LEDs. I've got 6 Noctua fans in here, and an ADT M2 PCIe riser for the 10 gig cord. So some background. I had very strict requirements of what I wanted to do with a mini ITX build. I've done one of these before. I wanted to have it fully water cooled with a dual rad configuration. I wanted it to be SFF, so previous to this I had an NCase M1 slightly smaller than this with a dual rad configuration, and I also managed to get 10 gig in there, but I wanted to upgrade obviously because requirements have changed. The NCase M1 also had an Iceman, sort of a reservoir and pump combo here, but it was a DDC pump, and it would have it on the outside just like what I've done here. And I needed 10 gig, definitely needed 10 gig because all of my network is 10 gig in my house, so I had to go for 10 gig in. Currently no SFF or mini ITX motherboards have 10 gig built in, so I had to take things in my own hand. I was obviously happy to modify the case here and there as well. So let me just talk to you about what happened. So as you can see, the case is now fully operational. The build is now fully operational. Everything's working. A little bit of work to do on the LEDs. They're a bit naff, but who cares? I can work on them. Most of it is going to be hidden anyways. There's a lot to be desired on the cable management, as you can see. It's a huge mess, but kind of all this dual rad thing kind of this tucks in on top and hides everything anyway, so not too bothered about it. So let me just talk to you about the build. So this is a Cooler Master NR200P modified to quite an extent. Actually, I had to chop quite a lot of things to make this work, but it did come through in the end. So what you see basically is, I think the biggest thing you'll see here is this external D5 and reservoir combo. And what I did, the inspiration was from in the days of NCase M1, if you recall, there was an Iceman Radiator combo. Sorry, no Radiator combo. Pump and reservoir combo. They used to fit on the outside of the M case. I had struggled quite a bit on where to put this reservoir and pump inside the case with the dual rad configuration. There were a few ideas, maybe put it around here somewhere, tucked over there somewhere, or get rid of these fans on top and do something here, or change the reservoir completely, do a smaller reservoir and put the pump somewhere else in the system. But even though there were some possibilities, I thought, it's maybe best to keep it outside the case so that I have a lot more room here to work with, because I had a 10 gig card to fit in as well, which I'll get to in a second. So as you can see here, this is the FLT 120 EK. There's a D5 pump here with a cap on there, which looks pretty sexy, I think. And it's connected to right to the case with some screws. You'll see them right here, there, and up here. I can connect them right there. There were already some holes in there, so I didn't have to drill anything. But what I did do is I had to cut some of this open so that I can get the hoses through from the back of the case. So the top one is the outlet from the reservoir, and the bottom one is the inlet. So the outlet basically goes into the flow meter. This goes into the CPU block, comes out of the CPU block, goes into the GPU block. Then from the back of the GPU block goes back there and then down into the first radiator, which is an XSPC 240 radiator with 2 Noctua fans on it, intake. So that, yeah, goes down into the radiator and then comes out from the radiator and goes into the big one, and then comes out of the big one and goes back into the reservoir as a full loop. So this worked out quite well, and it was a happy accident because I wanted to ensure that the CPU, which is the hottest part in this whole configuration, gets the coolest water first. And as it happens, it does. So if you look at the configuration, right from the reservoir goes directly to the CPU block. Goes this flow meter in there, but that's just measuring the flow, nothing else, and I'll show you that in a minute. Goes into the CPU block and then comes out, goes into the GPU, and then to the 2 radiators, which cools everything back into the reservoir and then back into the CPU. So the CPU always gets the coolest water in the loop, which was awesome. My experience of AMD Ryzen processors is that they run so hot. Now this Intel is doing really well. This 12900K is doing a lot better than my 3950X in temps. Not just because of being Intel, but because I think I've done the loop quite nicely. Something else you'll notice in here is that there's a 10 gig card right here. This is a 10 gig SFP plus card in the back, and it's kind of shoehorned into the case. And it's basically connected by a M2 PCIe riser that goes from the second M2 slot from the motherboard up to the riser, and then there's another 2 terabyte NVMe under there as well in the motherboard because it takes 2. 64 gig Dominator DDR5 4200, or I think 5000, yep, 5000 megahertz. 850 Gold Plus SFP SFX power supply. All these connections, the water block, well, sorry, what the hell are they called? Yeah, so the hoses are ZXT from EK. You can see some Barrow connectors here, some EK connectors here. So it's basically a variety of different things. I just used whatever I could to make the loop work as best as possible, because what I wanted to do was ensure that it's flexible enough so that I can move it out and back in whenever I needed to. So it is all flex, and I can push it back up and kind of arrange the hoses in a way that it closes flush. So it's pretty cool when it's all coming together, when it all comes together. What else? No, I think the interesting thing on the 10 gig card that I want to show you is, actually you'll see here that this also has a fill port and a drain port all in one. This reservoir combo, I managed to do one here. I had to chop a little bit of the case here for the FLT the bracket here, to make a hole big enough so that I could have a fill port. Anyways, if you look at the SFP Plus card, I had to chop the motherboard from here, make a hole big enough here and here so that I could fit a card in there. As you can see, the card fits in great. It clears everything. It has a clear route to an SFP Plus cable as well, and it lines up nicely with the Ethernet. I didn't do that on purpose, it just happened by itself. And yeah, that's what it looks like from the back. Pretty clean. I also have Thunderbolt, so I could use that furthermore for other networking opportunities or monitors if I needed to, but at least I have them free for future expansion if I need to. I wanted to ensure I could use that second M2 slot for 10 gig and also try to fit it in here. I initially had plans to see if I could fit the card under or in between the GPU block and the fans, but that was really too tight. So I had to make a decision to put it up here, and it works fine. It clears everything else as well. It's working well. All right. All these are Noctua fans. Everything is controlled by the Octo, Aquacomputer Octo, which sits right around here in the back somewhere. Connects all these 6 fans, all of them Noctua. And also has connectors to the flow sensor. And there's a temperature probe, ambient temperature probe that sits inside here somewhere, just kind of hanging up in here. And also a temperature probe inside the loop, so it measures how the loop is doing. So I've got actually three temperature sensors in the whole computer. So we've got one which is measuring ambient and 2 which are measuring the loop. One's inside this flow sensor and a secondary one there, all connected to the Octo. The Octo suite currently looks like this. It's showing the sensor at sensor 1 at 33, sensor 2 at 34, and the third sensor, I think I created a new page. So basically what you'll see is the first sensor is the flow sensor, which basically is showing temperature coming out of the reservoir. So if you remember, a reservoir gets the coolest water. So when it goes into the CPU, it's that. And then when it comes out the other end, it's 34 degrees. So there's always like a 1 to 2 degree difference. Even in this small loop, in the travel of the water, it shows there's a difference of about 1 degree and 1.5 degrees, even in the same loop, because I have 2 sensors. So it's pretty cool. It's also showing flow, liters per hour. I have a curve in the motherboard BIOS for the D5 pump. It's not running at full power, it's got a curve on there. So the flow does go up when we have the system on load. The 6 fans here, bottom, there are 2 at the bottom here, which are intake fans that go into the XSPC Rad. There's the side fans here, which are the 2 big ones, which are these ones. They're also intake to connect to the 280 Rad. They're shown here. And then there's the top 2 fans that just pull air out of the whole case just to keep it cool. I do need to do a little bit more configuration on the Octo, because I could do things like managing the LEDs a little better, I guess, and a few other things I want to do, but we'll get to that. All right, so I did do a few tests on the whole system, and it's performing really well, better than my expectations. On full load for 20 minutes, the CPU reaches 79 degrees and the GPU reaches 54 on full load. So I don't run them concurrently. I just do it one after the other just to ensure that I can get a good delta. And so yeah, so the temps are performing beautifully. I had not expected this to work so well, and it is. And I guess I'm lucky in the way this all came around and came about with the different configurations that I have and the way the water loop works. Another thing that I really wanted was a screen in the front. So I have a screen in the front as well. And as you can see, this is a Windows screen. So it's just acting as a secondary screen in the front. It's actually an Android tablet, which I have connected via USB. So inside the front panel, it's connected at the bottom via USB, and the USB is connected internally to the motherboard somewhere around here. And it works like a charm. So what I plan to do up here is like a mission control dashboard or something on how the computer is performing. And I'll think about that, maybe rain meter or something cooler than that, maybe a pre-built sort of a dashboard that I can just pick and choose what I want to fill the whole screen here, maybe run some animations up top, company logo that I run up top as well. So yeah, just a few ideas I had about that. Otherwise, yeah, that's the whole system ready, singing, doing its thing. Any questions, please let me know. Thanks.